Just 2 years ago, the Indiana Hoosiers were 3-9, and now they're national champions. Which Big 12 team is going to follow the blueprint?
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I think I'm probably supposed to clap there, but I'm not Drake Toll. I'm Parker Angel with Locked On Cougs, subbing it. Houston-born teacher and coach, subbing in, substitute teacher of sorts. We got JT Wistill of Locked On Utes. We got Cody Stovall making his return of Locked On Oklahoma State, and Kevin Borba, Borbtastic as he may be, all here for the Big 12 squad. Fellas, Indiana national champions. I wasn't that championship game, national champions. Look, it's weird to me that this is the world we live in 2026. There's a lot of things to talk about here. I'm sure we're going to get to a bunch of different rabbit holes here, but am I crazy for thinking that Cody decided to just come on this week after a long hiatus because it's Indiana Hoosier Blueprint Week? What's the thought there, Code?
You know, that thought process of JMU players cannot go to Indiana and win a national championship. Yes, it does allow all of us in Orange Country and everywhere really to, establish at least a little bit of craziness that this could be a potential possibility. But as an Oklahoma State fan, seeing a bunch of North Texas top talent and all of the North Texas coaches and all of the staff and the GM and everybody coming on over, it is nice to see that it can be done. Does that mean it's going to happen at Oklahoma State? Well, time shall tell, gentlemen. But at least we now know that it's a possibility that if you do it right, if you spend the right money on the right guys, you can take down the Blue Bloods and it not be, a figment of our imagination. I think if Indiana would have barely squeaked through all of these games, it'd be an entirely different conversation. But they dominated all the way to the Natty, and they found a way to get it done. So, yeah, there's a lot of hopium flowing in Stillwater, America right now with what we just witnessed.
Monday night felt like a win for college football fans, unless you're a fan of like a big blue blood, right? Because every single year we get hyped and excited about our teams and we want to think they can win it all. Indiana fans have been doing that forever. And before Cignetti stepped on campus, they were the losingest program in the sport. They now went on to win a national championship. All of us collected here are obviously not fans of the losingest program in the sport. So why can't our team 1 year, not every single year, be a contender? We'll even see how Indiana is next year, right? But 1 year, get everything right, get everything perfect, and make that run. I genuinely think what Monday provided was hope to every fan base, and it's got me feeling hopeful that maybe just one day the Utah Utes can break through, and I share Cody's optimism. It was really cool to see what Indiana can do, and it gives me hope for the future.
You say 1 year. They were 11-2 last year, obviously 16-0 this year. And we'll get to portal class in the second segment. Maybe. We'll see how on track we are. But I think that it's fair to say they look pretty good next year too. Borba, as much as Cody's feeling good, though, I feel like you're hurting because this is the Indiana blueprint is really the Dion blueprint. It just actually worked this time.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Yeah, I think Deion Sanders was a visionary. I said it multiple times on my show when he talked about it that he is a visionary of sorts. I didn't know if the vision was going to work, and I think a lot of people are going to think I'm trying to pretend like I'm giving him credit for it working. But I think for Colorado, the main difference is they didn't have the continuity, right? The one thing that Indiana had, I think this is the hardest part to replicate, is they had continuity throughout the entire process. Like Curt Cignetti brought over his entire James Madison team. He brought over his entire James Madison staff, and they had a strong culture. Mark Cuban talked about it during the broadcast. I saw an interview at least where he's giving Indiana money, but one, it's not as much money as we all think. And two, they're not investing in just any player. And I think that's sort of been the challenge for Colorado and other programs is Colorado has thrown, I'll name a guy, his name Jaheim Otis was a huge transfer they got from Alabama, and they paid him a lot, and he gave them 9 tackles. And there was videos of like one of Deion's friends saying like, hey, the coaches say you're the best player, but you don't care. Like you don't give the effort. Like it's hard to find a group of guys who care, who could fit the billing, and the coaches can all scheme this together. So I think the best thing, like Indiana is great for college football because it's the parity we all wanted when we made the playoff happen. Right. But it's also like coaches around the country all puckered up a little bit, right? Like if you're Oregon, it's like, okay, well, you have Uncle Phil funding your entire program, and you can't even come close to
Uncle
winning a
Phil,
championship.
different. Not we think of different Uncle Phils when we say Uncle Phil. I'm just going to say that out loud.
Okay, the Nike Uncle Phil, sorry, RIP to the other one, but you know what I mean. Where it's like you have the billionaires, like Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. It's like, okay, you took over for Nick Saban. Why are you not doing that? So I think it's great for college football in terms of fandom, but I think blue programs are probably stressing, and then programs like Colorado and these other, I would say, programs that aren't the normal blue bloods. It's like all the fan bases are gonna be like, okay, well, why didn't you do it? Indiana was terrible.
Well, I think it's even better that it was Indiana for the Big 12 because Indiana's right the little engine that couldn't until it finally could. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's not a blue blood is great for the Big 12, even though they're in the Big 10. They have never been claimed by the Big Ten until, I don't know, yesterday. Yesterday's the first time Big Ten country was like, oh, don't forget about Indiana, everybody. And again, the Texas Techs, the Arizona States, the Oklahoma States, I think that you can have enough donor buy-in, as you're seeing in Stillwater, as you just recently saw in Lubbock. You can get enough donor buy-in as long as there's a return on investment. And I think that's the biggest importance for an Indiana or an Oklahoma State-sized school. If you do not get an ROI, this changes the landscape. But now that you've seen it can be done, you can get that return on investment. Yeah, the Alabamas of the world should be pooping their pants 7 ways from Sunday because it proves that anybody can do it if you just have the right continuity, as Borba just mentioned, which is, again, another reason why we're excited in Stillwater, America.
JT, I got a question for you because I think you look at a bunch of different conferences a bunch of different ways. Cody just said he thought it was good for the Big 12 that Indiana won because they're kind of always the also ran in the Big 10. They've never been a good football program. Mm-hmm. They're a basketball first school, and as another basketball school, I kind of like that, right? Would it have been better for a non-Big 10 and SEC team to win in Miami, or is that different because they're a brand? How do you see the difference? Because I kind of said over the weekend, like, which one would be better for Houston in the Big 12? Not that obviously the Big 12 team would have been the best, but that wasn't an option here.
I think in a way it would have been a win-win, honestly, for the Big 12. You could even group the ACC into this because the way I look at it is the Big 10 and SEC try and tell us how much better all their teams are than our teams. But I just watched a 2-loss ACC team make the championship game, going through a really good Ole Miss team and obviously playing Indiana closer than Alabama, than Ohio State, than a lot of these other teams had too, right? So I think that's where it was a massive win for all of college football that you have either Indiana in that case or in Miami, as it would have been, break through and prove that, hey, it's not just the top brands, right? And yes, Indiana's in the Big 10. I'm not saying they're not, but they were never a team that we thought was going to be. I mean, even 5 years ago, anyone tells you this is happening, they're laughing in your face. So,
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Exactly. Yeah, they would won 2 games. So it's incredible.
Last year, honestly.
When Kirk Cignetti took the court and was talking about we're going to beat, like Ohio State sucks, Michigan sucks, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, like what is he talking about? Like this seems like a recipe for disaster. And we're going to play that video over and over again like we do Brian Kelly's whole video with his fake LSU accent, right? That's what we thought that was going to live on in infamy. Instead, it was the first like iconic moment for the guy who talked about Googling me. So I think this is a massive win. Oh, really quick, just want to say this. I think Texas Tech is on a very similar path to what Indiana's now become. They took a lump this year. We'll see how it works this year. I have questions about Sorsby, but I feel like sooner than later, we're going to see Tech in the game and the biggest game, and potentially hosting that trophy with their NIL resources being what they are.
It might be what's best for everybody, guys, though. I like Miami. I hope that they end up in the Big 12. But the ACC winning a title would have made them an insufferable fan base for Big 12 country. So, yeah, I'm kind of glad that that it went the way that it did. And I'm okay with the Big 10 being top dog because at least we can all finally admit the SEC is not the top dog, which means, I'm telling you, fellas, we can catch them. We can catch the SEC. We may not be able to catch the Big 10, but if the ACC won a natty, we would have never heard the end of it. So I like the way that it worked out.
I like the way that it worked out in a lot. I mean, hard to not root for a Mendoza kind of character or whatever, too, right along the way. I do want to talk about this blueprint, the portal, because JT brought up Sorsby, and I'm not buying that smoke either. I got a lot of questions about what happened now that it's kind of starting to wind down, but Texas doesn't have to just take over your life as much as the transfer portal seemed to take over our lives for the past month. This year, TurboTax make it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day and forget about tax season. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without stress, no guesswork. So spending hours trying to figure out forms, you meet a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can even contact them online. Doesn't have to be in person. That's not your thing. It's a huge time saver and a real peace of mind, knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If TurboTax expert didn't file your tax last year, file by February 26th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. And listen to us talk about college football and things like that all the time. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Fellas, the transfer portal is winding down. Texas Tech spent a lot of money, as they tend to do. I'm not sure Sorsby is the answer. I've got questions about Lagway in Waco. I feel pretty good about what my Houston Cougars do, but this is a squad show. And so I'd like to throw it to the table. What names do you think of as the biggest ones of the portal?
Drew Bethmaker and Caleb Hawkins. What are we even talking about here, fellas? Come on, man. That was a layup of all layups. You're a basketball guy. I appreciate that lob. I will alley that motor trucker in there. Good looking out, Parker. Fellas, you feel free to have fun too.
Yeah, I think Sorsby's the biggest name just because of sort of the buzz around him. Like he was, depending on your recruiting service of choice, the number one portal quarterback or number one portal player. And so he is also, I mean, the downfall of Texas Tech was Baron Morton was average, right? Or I think that's a generous statement. Like he wasn't good enough to get them to the big stage. And so now Brendan Sorsby is the missing piece. So it's like, it's intriguing to see, is he that good? Like at Cincinnati, I feel like he was really good this past year, right? He had great numbers and was projected as like a first round pick at times. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how he translates. For DJ Lagway, I mean, everything about his journey to Baylor just screamed stay away from me. Like I was just like, he visited like 4 schools. It felt like while he was committed, he had RG3 like constantly simping over him on X. Like it was like really uncomfortable. It was almost like, it felt like high school almost, where it's like you ask someone to prom or like you accept like a dance invitation. You're like, I'll go with you, but let me make sure like so-and-so's not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Like I'll go with you, but hold on. And like it seems very weird that he latched himself onto what seems like a very like he's with Billy Napier with less swag is like how I view Dave Aranda. Like Dave Aranda is a sinking ship at like his tenure. So like, why would you want to go back to a similar situation where you just sort of watched it implode?
Sorsby's the biggest name, I think, that stayed in the Big 12. I think Levitt is the one that everyone's talking about, right? But that's leaving. So let's touch on what's focused here. But I think what's interesting is what Kevin pointed to when he said this is what's supposed to be the answer. Is he supposed to be the answer because of what he's done, or are we just being told that he's supposed to be the answer? I like Sorsby. I think he's a good player. I don't know. Maybe I'm just I like Josh Hoover too. Like that was interesting to me. Like if I could have had the two, I might have sided with a Josh Hoover. And I'm not trying to be mean to Sorsby. He did some really good things this year, but at the same time, his team did lose to the 3 best teams they played in a row, pretty much, by the way. Utah, BYU, Arizona. They lost all of those games. Wins aren't a quarterback stat. Fair, but in each of those games, I was waiting for Sorsby to make a play, step up in the moment, and I left those games feeling underwhelmed in all of them. I did not watch this Tech team get shut out against Oregon and go, you know what's going to be the difference when Sorsby's under center next year? I didn't feel that way at all. So they get shut out, and then they're plastering this on a New York, the billboard and Times Square and everything. It just rings of like they're trying to force to feed us how awesome he is, yet his team didn't end up ranked. And yes, he only threw 5 interceptions, but once again, he came up small against some of the best teams he played. Now, better talent around him at Tech. I get that. But does that guaranteed mean he's going to deliver? We just saw Morton not able to do so when a lot of us thought he would in that circumstance. So I'm not convinced that Sorsby's the guy there. I think it's overhyped to me.
I'm not convinced he can't do the Trent Dilfer thing. Right? Like yes, I'm not saying he can't do that. I just don't know that I'm like getting excited about spending $5 million to have that done either. I think
the $5 million is an interesting number, Parker, because it's like, if you have $5 million, why would you like Darian Mensah, for instance? Like, I think that's probably like, if you were to ask, I would say 1,000 college football fans if they'd rather have Darian Mensah or Brendan Sorsby, I think you'd get some pretty mixed results. So it's like, is that really the game changing move? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, though, is like, could you have gotten something less splashy All right, and even it's even that splash you get Brendan Sorsby, I guess, but for cheaper, and then also gotten another receiver or another this or another, or some maybe put that money towards and gotten a better this or a better that. I mean, it's the market's obviously hard to tell, and I know that they've got a triumvirate of people doing it, and they, for what it's worth, they won the conference last year. They do it very well.
Lost a lot on the D line though, right? Like that was one of the best
Yeah.
units in the country, I felt like, and that allowed them to stay in the game against Oregon. A lot of those guys are NFL bound. So I'm curious to see those guys. Yes, when you have NIL, you can potentially replace them. Easier said than done, though, with some of those dudes.
And fellas, I think one of the biggest things that not any of us are taking into consideration is the offensive line. To me, that CFP game was the biggest glaring issue was the O-line. Baron Morton did not look very good. And I think Sorsby is a little bit better version of Baron Morton. Athletically, I think they're pretty similar. I think arm talent's pretty similar. There's a lot of comparisons. So if that exact same Texas Tech talent level shows up and Brendan Sorsby is the quarterback, I mean, maybe they score a couple touchdowns, right, in comparison. But I think that offensive line, if I'm an Oklahoma State fan and I watch the Texas Tech game, the one thing I would like to do is make sure the offensive line is better than what you saw roll out against Texas Tech, because Baron Morton didn't have any time.
On the bright side, they did land the number one offensive tackle. Now, the downside is every video, which these are all just videos and people get riled up about this, but every video from the All-American camp, he was on his back every video I saw of him. And I don't know how Texas Tech fans are going to hate this, but I don't know if he's ready to just slide in there and be their $3 million guy.
Well, and I do like to laugh at spending a lot of money on a recruit that might not have been worth it if it's happening in Lubbock. I would point out most of those T-shirts and shorts generally favor defensive linemen, not offensive linemen.
Yes,
in the same way that they favor receivers, not cornerbacks, typically. But I will say it was fun to laugh at those kinds of things. I guess that's kind of and look, I'm going to sound like the homer here. I feel very confident what Houston just did in their transfer portal class. They got a defensive end edge guy, and Ashton Porter out of Oregon. They also got Mekhi Hughes, who was like a bell cow of sorts at Tulane before going to Oregon. He opted to redshirt, so his numbers to Oregon are very low because he only played in 4 games in a 5 running back rotation. But they did pretty well, I think, in pulling some guys out, bringing some guys back home to some Houstonian guys. And I just don't know that. Look, Tech spent the most money. I don't know if that means they ran away with the portal class at all. JT, y'all might have had you and Cody both, I guess, had a lot of spots to fill, but it wasn't discussed. Like, I feel like Utah, everyone talked about people leaving Utah, not a whole lot about people brought in.
Yeah, it's because it's all unproven P4 players. A lot of good G5 players ready to take the next step. Potentially, that's the hope, right? But then you can look at it from the other way as well, and you see Utah having brought in a bunch of SEC or Big Ten guys that didn't play very much. So for Utah, you're relying a lot on the recruiting and developing, which they've done. They in some ways, they've earned the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, you lost a lot of those coaches that did that developing. So how's that going to work? It helps when you bring the quarterback back. I feel like Utah should be good next year. I don't think their schedule is too scary, but at the same time, I think as we sit here today, you could very easily make the case they're a prime regression candidate, because the best thing about this Utah team was their offensive line. Also had some pretty good pass rush too. Of the 9 players in the trenches, Utah lost all 9 of their starters in the trenches. That's a lot to have to replace one year to the next. So I think Utah is capable of still contending in this conference, but I feel like there's also a very good chance they're more 8-4 than 10-2 next year. That's what I'm curious to check out. I just want to say really quick, to me, as we sit here right now on January 20th, it's Tech and BYU at the top. And then there's a lot of different order you can have it in. But I do feel like those 2 teams belong at the top right now. And yes, I know I'm the Utah guy, and I just said that. It did hurt my soul.
Speaking of hurting souls, I need Cody to explain to me why Oklahoma State is not just going to be North Texas playing in the Big 12, or maybe that's a good thing and they are. I don't know. But one second. Cody, North Texas was a very good G5 team last year and would probably have beaten a number of Power 4 teams.
Right.
Do you feel confident trotting out the Oklahoma State Mean Green?
I do, especially now that we've clearly surpassed the amount of Power 4 transfers. It is the same number as North Texas transfers. Listen, guys, we all know winning 12 games anywhere, any place, anytime is not easy to do. It takes a considerable amount of talent. And on top of that, we do have like 35, 40 guys that are choosing to stay on top of the 40 or few guys that are coming in. I think that you have to merge the talent that was in Stillwater, because I mean we have some, right? You don't get to this level with a bunch of nobodies, and the ability to retain some of those I think were important. The North Texas guys obviously massively beneficial, but you also got to have some of these other P4 additions, and thankfully we've had that. We've had 6'4" Bowick, wide receiver, coming over from Illinois. We just landed a 6'3", 315-pound defensive tackle from Washington. We just got a safety, Mose, over from Mizzou. So we're not only getting the North Texas people, we're getting the best North Texas people, the North Texas All-Americans that still have multiple years of eligibility. And we got a bunch of legitimate Power 4 transfers like Isaiah Chisholm, 174 tackles at UCLA. It's hard to replace that production. So I think that's the important piece, is it's not just North Texas Cowboys. It's a bunch of other pieces that form what should be an immediate bowl team.
Kevin, I don't guess they played last season. How do you think Colorado was stacked up with the Mean Green?
Yeah, I think Deion Sanders really changed his entire transfer portal ideology. He still uses it, but now he's changing who he's going after, and he's going after a lot of Group of 5 and FCS all-conference players, and then sort of sprinkling in some Power 4 guys like Boo Carter from Tennessee, who is an all-SEC guy. And I think Colorado will match up really well. I think this is honestly my favorite transfer portal class of Deion Sanders, mostly because I think you could see the effort that they're putting in. Deion Sanders himself has said that he's evaluated on film every player that they brought in, and he wasn't able to do that last year because he was battling cancer, and I always will give him the benefit of the doubt for that. And I always say, like, he had to rely on people who, come to find out, they had personal motives maybe ahead of the team's interest, I think you could say. So I think Colorado's class is really good. I think they have the best wide receiver group in the Big 12. I think I do. I'm pretty high on them. They got Danny Scudero from San Jose State, DeAndre Moore from Texas, and they got a lot of really good players. And so defensively is where I think I'll be the most interested. I don't think Colorado's offense has ever been like their biggest flaw. Defense this year, they probably couldn't stop us as a running back room. So we'll see if they could slow down the run.
Hey, really quick, Cody, is that the goal next year? You just said bowl eligibility is what you want. Is that the expectation, Stillwater, get to bowl eligible and we're happy? Or do you guys want to we talked about Indiana in the first segment. Do you want to be a team that contends for the top of the Big 12 conference next year?
I think it would be completely illogical as a fan base to go into the season with 9-10 win expectations. However, when you're spending this kind of money, everyone's going to keep talking about Texas Tech money, but there's oil money in Stillwater, America too, and oil money goes brrr. It does really, really well. And I think that Oklahoma State, with the amount of money we're spending and the amount of talent you're bringing over, I mean, it's hard not to reasonably expect 8 wins, right? I think 10 wins is probably too much, but in a rebuild year, if we were only spending $13 million and we had a average transfer class, then yeah, 6 wins, we should probably make everybody pumped as all get out. But we didn't do that. We have a top 5 class. We're spending, top 3, top 4 in Big 12 money. We need to see, 7-8 wins, I think, is the minimum when you're putting all of this together.
I agree with everything you're saying. I just know how impatient fan bases are. That's all I want.
Yeah, I would say I haven't Googled the coach, I guess, but I wonder if 2 years from now you're holding not only a national championship trophy, are we disappointed, Cody? Because that's kind of the timeline that's been spent now.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't think a natty would be a disappointment if we're not holding one. But I do think that Eric Morse has plans. Why else would you bring in 85% of your staff and 85% of your best players if you didn't intend on being instantaneously successful?
Mm-hmm.
So national championship or bust. Got it.
No. Okay, stop doing this. But again, I think if Oklahoma State is looking at an 8-9 win season, I think everyone should be happy with that. And then year 2, yes, the Signetti expectations probably come.
What Signetti did create really quick is I think the top jobs in the sport are no longer 4-year rebuilds. You better show really strong signs in 3 years or they'll be moving on. I do think the days of like a top college coach getting 4 years, I think it's almost out the window. I mean, people forget before the whole Sharon Moore thing happened, he was going to be on the hot seat going into next year. And he was literally 1 win away from the playoff this past season. That's how high expectation I think these top jobs are going to be at.
You think it changes if you're at Utah, JT, where like we've kind of known who this guy was going to be for a minute? Like the coach in waiting thing, I think also like he's kind of should have been setting some roots along the way. Like, does it make it faster?
I think for a Utah, right, like he has to keep us in contention. Now, if Utah were to go 8-4 this season, and you could argue based on who those losses are with the rest of the Big 12, like how it plays out, if that's a disappointing season. To me, like if you were to say, JT, of Utah's 10 best players last year that could have come back, how many did Utah lose? And you can include NFL draft in this. I'd probably say 8 of them. I think Devin Dampier, the quarterback, and Wayshawn Parker, the running back. The rest of those guys left. So if you're 8-4 next year, in some ways that could still be a win because of how much you lost. But there are Utah fans who will be disappointed in that because we want to be where we've been at and feel like, hey, last year we were a conference title contender. We want to be that year in and year out. So I do think if in 3 years' time, if Morgan Scalley doesn't have this looking like a conference title contender, would Utah move on? I'm not necessarily there, but I think the seat would be scorching hot going into year 4 if Utah was not any of those years in the top 5 to 6 of the Big 12, because I do think the standard will still be very high in Salt Lake City.
I think the one thing that could save jobs though is contracts. Like if LSU were to fire Lane Kiffin, like they'd be paying Brian Kelly and Lane Kiffin not to coach. So like expenses may come into play, but yeah, I think there is a little bit of pressure to succeed at these Power 4 programs. Like I think of like Texas, I just saw something the other day that they're going to be like the first $40 million roster. So it's like, if you don't win with the $40 million roster, like how do we know you're the guy? So I think it's like all these coaches and programs want more investment, but the more investment you get, the more pressure it adds, I guess. So
is Steve Sarkisian, is he generally on the hot seat though? Just 2 years ago, he got him into the Final Four.
I don't think
crazy,
so.
Right?
I don't think he's on the hot seat, but I do think it's like Ryan Day, where there's certain fan bases, and I don't think any of us are those fan bases, where it's like if you're not winning a championship every year, you're considered like Ryan Day was going to get fired, like literally like last year until they won the championship. So, or they wanted him to at least. I don't know if he was.
Kyle Whittingham's about to learn what one of those fan bases is all about.
Hey, speaking of Kyle Whittingham, Utah fans are sometimes hard to deal with. I feel like half of them spend more time trying to practice sucking a golf ball through a vacuum than being productive. However, I will admit we need Utah to have a better record than Michigan, right? Scalley needs to deliver and produce more wins than Whittingham at Michigan for the Big 12. So we're rooting for you in Cowboy country this go around.
Oh, you are rooting for Utah.
That's right.
You're excited for Utah fans.
Well, every game that I watch of Michigan, I'm going to watch of Utah and hope that there's a better outcome in Salt Lake City.
Good deal.
That's a fun game. So, like, who are you rooting for the downfall of? So it would be.
I hope Matt Campbell struggles mightily. I really do. Really? I know that's not exactly on him. When your athletic director comes out and says, we're the poors and we're about to be operating in the red, it's really difficult to hang on to your coach. I get that. But I don't know, man, just something about the way it went down. I kind of hope Penn State struggles.
I'll say I'm not really exactly rooting for their athletic director after some of the comments that he made. And I know that's not totally fair because a lot of them leaked on that one audio thing, allegedly.
Hold on.
What?
Your athletic director puts his foot so far in his mouth.
Wait a second
so often. What are you talking about? I love you.
I think there's a large difference between an athletic director saying he's frustrated with refs and letting emotions get the best of him after a game versus an athletic director who's basically talking about how every team in his conference is so bad, even though he can't beat them year after year. I'll also just say this, which might surprise some of y'all. I actually do hope Kyle succeeds at Michigan. I mean, he gave us 21 plus years, right? I want him to find success there. Now, what level of success, right? Like, I think they'll make the playoff, but I don't think he's going to win a title there. So ultimately, in some ways, he won't be remembered as an all-time great Michigan man, unfortunately, probably.
Yeah, that's what I don't want.
I think you're going to get your way because it's as much as Indiana and Signetti made it look easy, as we all know very well, it is very hard to win at that high level of this sport.
Being a Michigan man doesn't seem to be like the best these days. So maybe it's the best for him.
I would say
just,
they need
pay
a
attention
new
to who you're
They
into.
need to like change it up. I
they need
feel
a
like
new version of a man at Michigan. I think that's probably the
Yeah.
they
A new
need
version of a
something
man.
different.
it's like Mario Cristobal saying everyone wants the U to be back, and he's like, we are literally not that at all. He's like, we will never be that. And I feel like people. Granted, I was really young. Like when Miami won their last title, I was literally 2. But I remember watching like documentaries and watching people talk about that Miami team, and it was just like, yeah, that was a different breed of athlete back then and personality. Like that's just not what we have these days.
When you have Ray Lewis over there, it definitely is different. Very different.
Yeah.
So is Mario Cristobal trying to say that we are not the cocaine hurricanes anymore? Is that what he was trying to get at?
They do chant cocaine a lot. No,
We're not going to be those hurricanes again. Ooh, I wonder why.
well, on that note, is that a matcha you're drinking there, Borba?
It is, yeah.
I can't believe we didn't talk Utah basketball after a massive win against TCU.
Fellas, we
What a
could go
missed
another 30
opportunity.
minutes on
What
basketball.
a missed opportunity.
Yeah, we could keep going on basketball. I like it. I like it a lot.
I do enjoy my basketball. However, I'm going to
We're 14-4 and about to beat TCU. I'm all about it.
I can show you the blueprint.
I enjoy a lot of basketball. But if you want to talk about basketball with any of us, you can find us at Locked On Utes. That's JT. Locked On Oklahoma State. That's Cody Stovall. And Locked On Buffs with Kevin Borba. I'm Parker Angel. Locked On Cougs. Subbing in for Drake Toll. Locked On Big 12. The Dose Grande. We speak Spanish on the Dose Grande?
That's right.
Oh,
You nailed it.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
me too.
So
How do you say squad in Spanish?
Equipo? No. Huh?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Where's Drake when you need him?